What's up, everybody? Troy Cartwright here. A couple self-promotional items before we get started. I am going on tour starting October 26th. I'm playing Chicago, then Cincinnati, St. Louis, Omaha, Kansas City, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, and all those tickets are on sale now at troycartwright.com. I would love to see you there. Come see a show, show you what it's all about. I also wanted to let you know that the Q&A episode that has long been promised is dropping this Thursday. So look for that later in the week. It'll just appear in the regular feed. And also just wanted to say I was so sad to hear about the passing of Jimmy Buffett. I know he was an inspiration to me and to many songwriters and artists. So thanks for the music, Jimmy. Today's guest on the pod is Emily Landis. Emily has some amazing advice for young songwriters later on this episode where she talks about finding her own voice, weathering the ups and downs of losing publishing deals, finding publishing deals, and an absolutely incredible story about getting to celebrate her first number one, a little song called The Good Ones with Gabby Barrett. I hope you love this episode. I love it. I love you guys. Without further ado, here she is, Emily Landis, everybody. How's your day going?
It's good. I actually just wrote with Cameron Bedell and Mark Beeson, and I listened to Mark's episode.
Oh, yes.
I was like, no pressure, Mark, but I did just listen to your podcast.
What did he say? Did he say anything? Jimmy called me today.
They both wanted me to tell you hello.
Okay, that's good. God, I love Cam.
Jimmy Bell, I listened to his too.
He called me this morning. He was like, bro, It's like this is like the most famous I've ever felt in Nashville.
It's the video clips.
It's like my face, every time I open up Instagram, my face is on there.
Yeah.
It's like, I hope that's okay. Sorry, no.
Yeah.
But I think it's good. I'm trying to shine a light on the songwriter.
Yeah.
You know, I told him, I was like, we're out of clips now, so it'll stop soon. I think the first time I ever wrote with you and probably met you was when we wrote with Cameron.
Yeah. That's what we talked about this morning.
Was that Hey Radio?
Oh, I forgot about that song. And
Sounds kind of a banger.
Was there a song called like Wired This Way or something? Wired something?
Yeah. We wrote a couple.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember. It was a longer time ago than I would like it to be.
Yeah, I was just going to say, sometimes we write like a handful of awesome songs, you, me, and Cameron, and then the three of us haven't written together in years.
I don't
like,
know.
Why does that happen? I don't know.
I don't know, because publishers get, like, people just get off the rotation, you know? It's just
we go through seasons of...
Yeah. All right, so normally we start this thing off. Just ask people, how long have you been in town?
Mm-hmm. I have been here, it'll be 11 years in August.
No way.
Yeah.
Where from?
I'm from outside of St. Louis, originally west of St. Louis, like 20 miles in the suburbs.
Okay.
And moved here August of 2012 to go to Belmont.
Yeah.
So I did, I got to have like my college experience, but at the same time, I got to intern and take advantage of all those opportunities.
Yeah.
And it helped me dip my toe into the music industry without having to just move here and be thrown to the wolves.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to like sort of ease your way into the deep end, right?
Yeah.
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 Did you have any crazy internships?
I interned a lot of places. I interned at Seagull Music, Big Deal Music, BMI, Carnival Music, but I was always in publishing internships because I really wanted to learn what a publisher's job was like and how all of the publishing companies operated on Music Row. Yeah. And for I'd say the first 2 years at Belmont, I thought maybe I wanted to be a publisher and not a songwriter. But I think that was like the fear in me not wanting to pursue it. Because once you move here and you see how good everyone is, it's intimidating.
It's really intimidating.
It's scary.
Yeah.
Not that being a publisher would be any easier because there are just as many like select number of spots for that too. I
always tell people like publishers have the hardest job in the music industry. But because I feel like they get, songwriters get some glory.
Yeah.
And like I know publishing a lot of times is like a thankless, it's a thankless job. A lot of people are mad all the time. I love my publisher though. Try and always treat them with with
Yeah.
kindness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you major in music business or songwriting, or what was your?
I was in the music business program.
Okay.
I actually did the songwriting program, so technically I majored in songwriting, minored in music business.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, it was definitely a music education.
Yeah.
And looking back, I realize now, like sitting in history class and biology, I was just daydreaming, writing songs in my head.
Yeah.
Like those are the moments I don't remember as much, but
Absolutely.
I loved, like I took a music publishing class and a creative writing class, and internships were all through Belmont's music business program. So it was really, I owe a lot of my luck that I've had so far to going to Belmont.
Yeah. And how does that work? Like I went to Berkeley up in Boston.
That's right.
So most of our internships were in the summers. So at Belmont, I mean, you're already in Nashville. So were you able to like do those internships like during the school year? So it was pretty much year round that you were able to kind of.
Yeah. And then I would, the summers that I would stay here, I would intern in the summer. And I loved my internships.
That's awesome.
It felt really cool. I was busy because I was working jobs, restaurant jobs and nannying.
Yeah.
Just to make some money and make ends meet while we were here.
Absolutely.
But internships, they're obviously not paid. You're just getting the experience.
Yeah.
But I would go to class, go to my internship, go to my job, and try to write songs at night. And you juggle all of it, and you don't realize that when you're doing it. But it makes me have a lot of gratitude now for just focusing on writing songs.
Yeah, for getting to do this with all your time. Because it does.
This was the dream,
You're living it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I assume like a lot of the people now that you know through songwriting you met like at Belmont, did that translate to like the publishers, et cetera? Did you meet a lot of your first publishers that way? Like people in the publishing industry, I should say.
Yes. I love like going back and talking about all this because it just reminds me how all the dots connect. But I was becoming that girl at Belmont who was the songwriting major who didn't want to be an artist, but I would go up to every artist at Belmont who was pursuing that career, and I'd be like, how can I help you write songs? I want to.
Oh, that's cool.
So my sophomore year, I saw my friend Kassi Ashton play in the Curb Cafe, tiny little cafe on campus with a little stage in the corner.
Yeah.
And she was a part of this country music ensemble called Southbound. And she did a cover of Johnny Cash, Ring of Fire. And she like rocked it like she was at the Bridgestone. And I was sitting in the back of the cafe like, this girl is so good. She had a star quality. And I went up to her and I was like, hi, Kassi, I'm Emily. She and I were actually in the same sorority for a second and a half. She was in the sorority not very long.
Gotcha.
But I said, we were in the same sorority. I think you're so good. Your voice is incredible. You're such an amazing performer. Could we write sometime? And luckily, we just started writing all the time. And we developed a really natural friendship and a natural rhythm. And I didn't realize that I was kind of practicing like what we do on Music Row, writing with artists. But our senior year, Kassi was in the big Belmont Country Showcase every year. It's a completely student-run concert, basically, in the Curb Event Center where they have the basketball games.
Gotcha.
And every semester, there's a different genre that a bunch of bands and artists try out to be in the showcase. They pick 4 artists to play the showcase that all these industry executives come and check out, like, who's the fresh crop at Belmont this year. So Kassi just happened to play the showcase, and she played 2 songs we had written together, and she won that showcase. And then if you win the showcase, you go on to play the Best of the Best showcase at the end of the year.
Okay.
And so pretty much just from writing with her, I got to naturally meet my first publishers at Big Machine. They were judges, and they just happened to see my name on some of these songs.
Okay.
And some of my other friends who I had written with at Belmont were also auditioning. And Mike Molinar, my first publisher, was just like, I just kept seeing your name on these songs, and I had to know who the girl was because I wasn't on stage performing them.
Yeah.
So that was pretty like a very smooth way of transitioning from writing in my little college dorm bubble to 16th Avenue, you know?
Were you writing, like, I guess when I moved to town was the first time I ever co-wrote.
Mm-hmm.
So prior to that, I would just, like when I still lived in Texas, I just like would from 11 to 1:30 every day, I would write in my, basically I had like an office, but it was just like my bedroom, you know?
Oh, me too.
But I just try to treat it like a job. But what was that like in being at Belmont? Did you have some sort of understanding of like, oh, people co-write? So like, do they have like writer rooms at Belmont? I just don't know anything about it. Like, where did you write songs?
I wrote them in my dorm room.
Okay.
And I would invite people to my dorm to write with me. But I think we all start out just like locking ourselves in a room with our guitars.
No doubt.
It's very introspective. And,
Yeah.
And I still love doing that.
Same.
But my freshman year at Belmont, I didn't write with anybody else.
Okay.
I was just making friends, very much like in my sorority and doing the college thing, you know?
Living your life.
Living my life.
Which is an important component of writing songs, by the way, having life experience.
I have to remind myself that.
Yeah.
But my sophomore year, I started co-writing, and I remember it being very scary, as I'm sure you remember.
My first co-write was with Clint Daniels. Like I like couldn't,
Wow.
I was absolutely terrified.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's incredible.
Yeah, he is.
My first co-write was with my friend Hunter Leith, who it's very cool. I wrote with him last week.
Oh, that's awesome.
He was also like pursuing an artist career at the time.
Okay.
And I loved his voice. And also back then, it was 2013, I think. The majority of people on the radio were men, country guys. And so when I moved here, I thought I just had to write guy songs.
Yeah.
And so with Hunter, I was like, oh, he's got a great voice. He could sing all our demos. He and I were just writing a ton.
Yeah.
And then, between him and Kassi, I feel like I really learned how to co-write with those two. And some of my other buddies back then, like Daniel Etheridge.
I still see his name rattling around.
I know.
Sure.
I know. The Belmont kids are still kicking around here.
Did that showcase and them seeing your name, like, did they literally just like ask you to go to coffee or something? Is that kind of how you met?
I got
those
coffee
guys?
with Tally Canterbury, who she's now at 50 Egg Music.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And she might have like emailed me or something. I don't remember how she reached out to me, but she and I got coffee, and that was the first time I had met with a publisher. I remember being very, very nervous.
Yeah. But you get that email, are you like, I feel like my skin would be tingling.
This is my time. Like, you think this is my break. It just takes like somebody seeing what you're doing and believing in it.
Yeah.
And that was really incredible. And then I was just kind of taking meetings with publishers through Kassi.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up like bringing my guitar in and playing for her to sing for publishers.
Oh, okay.
Which was cool.
Yeah.
And really brave. Now that I think about it, I would never like sit there and accompany an artist now. It's kind of like ignorance is bliss back then. You just do things.
No doubt.
Out of naivety a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
That's
wild
crazy.
Times.
Just to go back a little bit, I've heard you mention already a couple of times, like you were surrounded by a lot of people that were like being artists or trying to be artists or whatever. Like, what was it about songwriting that just made you go like, I want to be a songwriter, versus I feel like a lot of, college kids are like, I want to be the star, or I want to be, I'm going to play arenas. That's like what everybody says. I'm going to be an arena artist.
Really, honestly, it was moving here. And I remember my first week at Belmont. It's like, it's a music school like what you would expect in the movies or a TV show. Like people are playing guitars in gazebos. You're walking by the all guys dorm and there are 3 dudes out there singing a cappella. And I just like, they had some show where students would come up and sing. And I just remember being like, I don't have that stage presence, that confidence, that, oh my God, look at me. Like, I just remember being like, I need a pivot. And I always loved writing songs.
Yeah.
And I always was a freak of routine. And the life of an artist, it's like you wear so many different hats. You're not just wearing a songwriting hat and, working a 9 to 5, 11 to 4, whatever you would call our schedule.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to write songs, and that's where I find my joy and my purpose. And so I always felt kind of like anxious and awkward on stage.
Yeah.
I did it because I thought I had to, but it was never my comfort zone. It never came naturally.
Sure.
So seeing all of the Belmont artists, I was like, oh my God, everyone's so good. Everyone was too good. It's crazy.
Did you, do you remember how old you were like when you wrote your first song?
Mm-hmm.
How old
I do.
were you?
I was, I think, 13.
And you just figured it out?
I remember the song too.
I remember mine too. It's not good.
We should sing them. You go first. Actually, yeah, I picked up a guitar, I think around 12.
Okay.
My mom plays like very basic guitar, and she grew up on like the singer-songwriters. She loved the Carpenters, and Carole King, and Lena Ronstadt. And then my dad was playing country radio all throughout my childhood. So they were the perfect storm of me kind of dabbling in music. And so I wrote my first song. Really, I'm going all over the place, but
it's great.
What made me want to write a song was I remember being in like 7th grade, hearing Taylor Swift, Teardrops on My Guitar. No, Tim McGraw was the first one that came out.
Yeah.
And being the age, like almost the age she was when she wrote that song, I just remember thinking, oh my God, she's talking about my life and she's using it in her own words, and that is so cool, and I want to do that.
That's awesome.
And I think we've reached a point where we have a generation of working songwriters and artists who came up on Taylor Swift, and like, it's kind of crazy. All her songs were like 3 chords, so I just tried to do what she was doing, and I think awesome. A lot of girls were doing that. But my mom's mom, my Grammy, had passed away from melanoma. It was very, very sad, and I loved her to death. And I wrote my first song about my Grammy called My Last Goodbye, and it's very cute. But I was always so introverted and shy, and I showed my mom the lyrics. I didn't play it for her. I just had her read the lyrics, and she was like, oh, this is actually pretty good. Oh. And it was her idea for me to sing it at the funeral.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I remember hating performing, out-of-body experience, hated it, but I really loved the way that people were touched by the song.
Yeah.
So I guess early on I probably figured out I don't want to perform these, but we're all just trying to like touch someone the way we were when we heard certain songs, you know?
Yeah. That's such a good description of like the power of a song. Like that's my favorite part of writing songs, is just hearing somebody later on, whether I'm the singer or not, just hearing somebody say like, this song impacted me in some way. Because like you're talking about with Taylor Swift, like I just remember, listening to, I don't know, some Creed record.
Yep.
And I don't know, I was like 12, but I was like, maybe Creed's a bad example. Let's say Incubus or something.
It's a great example.
Yeah. But I remember like that Morning View record for Incubus, Wish You Were Here, that song. And I was like, oh, this is
You're like, what am I feeling?
How I feel.
Yeah.
I wish you were here. And then the first time I ever wrote a song, it was called like Frozen Over. It was no good. But
it's a good title.
Yeah. But I do remember like nobody told me to do it. I just started doing it. I don't really know where it came from. Which,
how old were you?
I think I was like 13.
Yeah.
Maybe 14. But I feel like that's this magical thing about songwriting. Like at a certain point, you do feel like you're tapped into some like weird higher power. I don't know. I have this weird mystic view.
It's very spiritual.
It
is.
is.
Do you find that?
I do, because I don't understand where it comes from. Like it truly does feel like magic to me. And obviously now, you kind of get that in the room sometimes. You're like, the whole thing pours out in 20 minutes, and it's like, what just happened, right?
You feel it like momentum.
Yeah.
I heard some songwriter describe it like you're surfing and all of a sudden a wave hits you and you're like, something's pushing you, propelling you forward, and you're not sure what it is, but something enters the room. I believe it's God. I think anything creative comes from a creator. And when those ideas like drop into the room out of nowhere, it is magic, like you said. Have you read Big Magic, that book by Elizabeth Gilbert?
I haven't.
It's really good
need
for
to.
People who do creative jobs, because she talks about how it's important to have a routine. You have to show up in order for the muse to enter the room, inspiration. But yeah, there's definitely momentum. There's something spiritual about it to me.
Yeah. I don't know. It gets me jacked,
Me too.
I get excited thinking about it. So you kind of had that first song that you wrote. Did you just keep writing after that?
Yeah. I just fell in love with it, and it became my cathartic way of coping with whatever a 13-year-old is coping with.
A lot of emotions. It's a good therapy tool.
And honestly, around that time, my parents were going through a really messy divorce. My mom was dealing with some mental health issues, and my brothers went off to college. My sister was coping in some less healthy ways. And music just became my escape. Yeah. And I think even to this day, like if you listen to a song or sit down and play a song, you're completely present. You're thinking about the words, you're thinking about how the melodies make you feel, but you're not thinking about whatever else is going on. And it just became my way of coping with life,
I love that.
And it still is, right?
Yeah.
It's free therapy.
Yeah.
When you sit with your co-writers and...
just talk about whatever. I mean, there are some co-writers that I have that know my deepest, darkest secrets.
Yeah. And you kind of... It's weird because like the older I get, the more I don't even care. I will air it all out. Yep. I'll dump out my dirty laundry on the table and sift through it. And I'll be like, y'all want to add some dirt to this? Like, what do you have going on? Let's shake it out and see what falls.
Oh my God. I guess through that process, right? You're like, okay, I want to write songs. This is what I want to do with my life, which is something I think about a lot too, is like, I always knew what I wanted to do, even from like I was 13. I was like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. Which is like a blessing, being young and knowing that, but also like it does cause complications because this is actually really hard.
Yeah.
So you have to find a way to make it happen. There's not exactly a just a blueprint you can plug yourself into.
Right.
Did you know about like songwriting and that Belmont like kind of could help you facilitate that dream that you had? Or how did you know that Belmont was right for you?
I knew I wanted to go to Nashville because it was always country music for me.
Yeah.
It's like my first love. And the only school I had heard of in Nashville was Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm not going to be a doctor. Vanderbilt wasn't going to play out for me. And then just through Google, I discovered Belmont's songwriting program, which was kind of new when I went to school. And my parents, their whole deal with me was, if you're going to go to Nashville, you need to get a degree. Because they're like, how is our daughter going to make money writing songs?
Yep.
And I thought the same thing. How the hell am I going to do this?
Yeah.
So I thought if I get a music business degree, maybe I'll be a publisher. Remember? I mean, maybe I'll intern and... but you can't fight the 13-year-old dream. Like I remember sitting in the back seat of my dad's green Chevy Blazer. I remember this so vividly. Being like 5 years old in the summertime, him playing Garth Brooks Double Live, and I would hear like The Dance and Friends in Low Places and The River. And I just remember being like, I'm feeling all of these words. This is my life. And I was 5. Like I didn't know what he was singing about. But that dream gets like placed in your heart early on. And it's wild that we've made it here and we're talking about it, to be honest.
It is. It's crazy. The odds are so long.
Yeah.
And yet, here we are.
No plan B.
No. How did you end up in your like first publishing deal, and what was that like?
Mm-hmm. So the timing was really great because those showcases happen towards the end of the school year. So around April, May, I was meeting with Big Machine. They were my first publishers, Mike Molinar, Tally, Alex Heddle. And Mike said he wanted to sign me kind of around when I was graduating. So I ended up being able to graduate and start writing songs full time.
Wow.
Which that wasn't the plan. I was going to be nannying, working my restaurant job. I had all my gigs ready so I could write songs on the side.
Yeah.
So it's such a blessing that I got to meet them so organically. And I was there from 2016 to 2018. And the thing about a first publishing deal is eventually you get dropped from your deal too.
Yeah.
I think it's very rare for people to be in their first publishing deal for a long time.
Sure.
At least from what me and some of my friends have discussed.
That has been the most experiences I've seen, right?
Yes.
Are like
that. And it's really cool to look back on all of it because when I first graduated, I was so young and I was trying to write songs like my heroes. I was trying to imitate songs that I already loved instead of using my own truth and my own voice, writing voice. So being dropped from a publishing deal is one of the best things that ever happened to me for my career because it lit this fire under me that like, okay, what have I been doing that is not working? And I've been writing C+ versions of songs I already love, but what do I have to say in my own way that needs to be said?
Yeah.
And after that deal ended, I just reached out to everyone I had interned for and started over, taking meetings everywhere.
Yeah.
And in 2018, my friend Rakaya Marshall was working at BMG, and she ended up saying, before you meet with anyone else, make sure you let me know because she just said something along the lines of like, don't sign anywhere before meeting with me again. And I remember being like, Rakaya, no one's trying to sign me, but you see that in me? Oh my gosh. Like, I remember being so flattered by that.
Yeah.
It's like one little nugget of hope is all we need in this business to get us through the string of no's.
Yep.
So I ended up signing with Rakaya at BMG, and I've been there since 2018.
Oh, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Golly. It's like, sorry, I was just thinking about how long 2018 ago
I know.
was.
I know. I'm like, 2 years ago? No.
Nope. Well, it's been very, very successful for you. Seems
Thank
like.
you.
Yeah. I guess you've had obviously some really, really big songs since then. And like, do you remember what your first cut was? That was like, well, what was your first cut? Do you remember?
I think my first cut was with Kassi.
Okay.
And it was a song we wrote together at Belmont, which was really cool.
That's awesome.
She signed at her publishing deal, Creative Nation, and then Universal Interscope record deal. And she put out a song we wrote called Pretty Shiny Things. And I remember thinking, this is the coolest thing in the world because she did a music video.
Yeah.
And we grew up on music videos on CMT.
Of course.
Like, that was it before school, you know? But yeah, I remember the song coming out on a Thursday night at 11 or whatever. And
Yeah.
I remember listening to it in bed and crying and being like, oh my God, this is it. And that song in particular, we were never together when we wrote it, which is really cool. We like sent voice memos back and forth to each other. And I remember leaving in the middle of a class one time, going in the bathroom and recording a little voice memo and sending it to her and going back into class.
Wow.
But I think that was my first major label cut.
Yeah.
Which is really special that it was with Kassi.
That is awesome. I love that so much. If you are willing to talk about it, I'd love to talk about I believe it was your first number one with Gabby Barrett. One of the good ones.
Yes.
Love that song. I think that song
Troy.
is so good.
Thanks.
So tell me a little bit about like, I guess writing it. And then also I'm always curious to know like about the journey of the song, you know, after writing it.
It's wild too, because, you know, like on Facebook, it says your memories pop up at the top.
Oh yeah.
So it said like 4 years ago, yesterday, I was looking at it and it said 4 years ago, I posted Gabby's album art and I said, our song is coming out this Friday, one of the good ones.
No way.
And I just was like, wow, 4 years, a lot can happen in 4 years. And we wrote it I think a year before that. The day we wrote that song, it was one of those days that shouldn't have even happened. I was supposed to write with Zach Cale and Jim McCormick, and Zach was producing Gabby.
Yeah.
And she was fresh off American Idol, but she didn't have any music out yet.
Did she have that? Did she even have the deal, the Warner deal yet?
I think so.
Okay.
But she was so new that they hadn't put music out. They hadn't.
Gotcha.
I just didn't know much of her yet.
Sure.
So Zach texted us that morning and said, hey, do you guys care if this girl I'm working with joins our write? And so Gabby hopped on the write that day. I think Rakaya was in the loop too. And she was like, you should definitely write with this girl.
Yeah.
So we showed up and the song happened very quickly. We were doing the title game. We're all in our phones, throwing out titles. And I think her first song had just come out, I hope, but it wasn't like the huge hit yet. So all I knew was she had this cheatin' song out that was incredible.
Yeah.
But I knew that she met her husband on American Idol and they had a really cool love story that like the world got to watch on the show.
Yeah.
So I was like, maybe she needs a love song. She has the breakup song. And I think the wildest thing is like, probably everyone in Nashville has written a song that's like, he's one of the good ones or she's one of the good ones.
Sure.
And so I remember almost not saying that title because I was like, everyone's probably written that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was my truth. I was like very happily newly dating my now husband, Johnny, and she was with her man. And she liked the idea. And Zach was playing like what is now the intro to the song. And so I remember saying he's one of the good ones. And Jim McCormick looking at me and saying, I love me like he should one, like he wrote the book one, like just like that poetic.
Yeah, like he does.
And I'm like, oh my God, there's a song there. Like I didn't think it was good until he did that.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it fell out really quick.
Wow.
Yeah.
And she sang, she was in the room.
She sang like this on the couch with the mic and just sounded
incredible. She's like one of the most incredible voices I've ever heard in my life.
And like effortless about it.
That's
so
awesome.
Nuts.
You know, I'm just presuming it was a Tuesday. I don't know what day of the week it was, but just another Tuesday. You leave the right. Like, are you like, this is going to be my first #1 song? Or are you like, cool, nice day, gonna go?
That's why it's so funny because we were like, cool, nice day, and see y'all. Like Gabby had to leave, I think at 2 p.m. or something, and me, Jim, and Zach went and got burgers, and I remember it feeling a lot like a normal day.
Yeah.
So it always makes me like, how many more days like that are we sitting on right now that have already happened that we don't know?
Yeah.
Because it did feel very normal. And the song didn't necessarily stand out or anything in the pile until I saw how like her fans received it. That's when I was like, oh. So
did you, in that case, you wrote it with the producer, with her producer. So how long from after you wrote it till like it got cut? Or was it technically cut? Like I don't know how that process worked for her.
It all moved very quickly for her. I think we wrote it and then maybe like 8 months later she cut it, and then a year later it went to radio, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. So it all happened in the span of 2 to 3 years, and then it had a year at radio. It's a surreal whirlwind that I still can't believe was real.
Yeah. Do you remember like hearing, because her single before that was I Hope, Monster. And then do you remember like getting a call that like, oh, we got the next single? Like, do you remember that day or?
Yeah. Well, she obviously needed a follow-up to that ginormous song.
Yeah.
I knew our song was in the pile, but I had no idea it was a contender for a single. And we just started to hear like hearsay that it might be the next single.
Sure.
Actually, this is a cute story, so I'll tell it. My friend Tranny Anderson, I was riding with her one morning and she brought a bottle of champagne. Her publisher at the time was working with Gabby, and she had told Tranny that it's the next single, and Tranny brought me champagne, but the news wasn't official yet. So Tranny ended up being like, you weren't supposed to tell her that. You weren't supposed to spread that news. And she was like, I don't care. I'm going to celebrate my friends. And so that was really sweet. But yeah, when it became official and it went to radio, it was actually the beginning of the pandemic.
Gotcha.
So I did like a Zoom call with my publishers and we celebrated like the ad day. And
Yeah.
but it was all during lockdown.
Gotcha.
Which is crazy.
That was a crazy time.
Yeah.
I don't even know. How long did it take, like, from the ad day to number one? Was it a long?
I think it was like 13 months.
Oh, okay.
From like,
It's a long climb.
yeah, it was about a year.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
What did that feel like?
It just felt like dominoes of dreams coming true. Like I thought I heard it on the radio and that was my biggest dream.
Yeah.
And so you're like, oh my God, that just happened. And then it hits top 40 and you're like, oh my God, it's top 40. And then there's a new milestone every month. And then it goes top 10, top 5, number 1. And that's something that I think a part of me was always hoped for, but I never knew that was a possibility. You're just blindly chasing it, you know?
Yeah.
So then it happens and it's you can't even describe the feeling. It's goes back to that dream that was put in my heart when I was a kid. And then what makes it even cooler is like, it's a song that for me is all about Johnny.
Yeah.
And it makes it so much bigger than me. You know, it made me like, okay, you've spent your entire life chasing this moment, this number one song. But guess what? It's all about your husband. And like, now it's time to think about some new dreams. And like, maybe you should start putting family.
Yeah.
You know, it's been a big lesson of like, my career will take care of itself if I'm nurturing the rest of my life. And the fact that it's that first big song is about him. It's like,
oh, that's
you
so
can't write
special.
that story, you know?
No.
And that's always going to mean that's going to be the part that is like the most special to me.
Yeah. That is an incredible story. Wow. What did you do to celebrate? Did you like think about buying a boat or something? Or?
Haven't bought a boat. I actually just upgraded my Honda Civic to a Honda HRV. That was a big deal. I was driving my high school car.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm saving the money.
Yeah.
We're trying to buy a house in the next couple of years, but we definitely celebrated. We've gone back home and celebrated with family, and we got to go to the CMA Awards, which was, like I said, these are dreams you don't even think are achievable.
Yeah.
Because when I was a little kid, I would watch the CMA Awards like it was the Super Bowl. That was my Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And so Johnny and I got to get all dressed up and got to sit down on the floor. And Luke Bryan came up to Jim McCormick and he's like, "Hey, man, how's it going?" And I'm like, it was so cool. And we got to see her sing the song. And my parents got to all come, and I got them seats up high, and they're taking blurry photos of us way down on the floor. And, and that was what it was all about to me. And after that, I had all my friends meet us at Bobby's Idol Hour, and we shut down Bobby's, and I had the worst hangover of my life the next day.
Worth it.
Worth it.
Worth it. I just love it so much because you got to really celebrate it because these things are so hard.
Yeah.
And like, that's what I always try and remember for myself along the way is like, I'm horrible at celebrating anything.
We're looking at the next thing always. It's hard to be right here.
It's so hard to be present because I think even if someone like says like, "Oh, I like that song you wrote," to me, I'm like, "Huh?" Like I can't take a compliment. I don't know what to do. Like I try and remind myself like, "Hey, you know, this thing happened today. That was cool. You should celebrate it. Like make it mean something." And so that you got to do all that stuff, have your family involved.
That's so
what the song meant to you, and then all the stuff with your friends. Like I love it. I'm gonna keep that in my
you gotta celebrate every milestone, or else what's it all for if you're not like,
it's about the journey.
Your parents need to come here and see why you moved here and why you moved away from home, because we miss a lot back home by being here pursuing this, you know?
Yeah.
We have nieces and nephews who grow up and we're not down the street, but they all understand that this is what we were put here to do, and we have a purpose that we are fulfilling too. And they wouldn't want us doing anything else.
No, and you'd be miserable.
Yeah.
As a writer, did it feel like it opened up a bunch of new rooms for you to go into and stuff like that? Or do you even think about it?
I actually try not to think about it a lot because, like we've talked about, that day felt so normal, like any other day. So I don't know. We just wrote what felt like the truth that day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just try to carry that. And I like knowing that it's possible now. So like any room we walk into, like we could write something that we hear on the radio and people sing along to in crowds. And that makes it real. That makes you want to write something
that's so good.
Just feels good.
That's
you know?
so good. Yeah, that's awesome. I think one of the things that I really admire about you is I feel like you're you're not a super on social media person. Is that like a choice you made just because is like a mental health thing? Do you feel like it makes you a better writer, or is it just like something you did one day?
Kind of both.
Yeah.
I took a year off Instagram, which was really cool, but there are pros and cons to it because I missed out on it's kind of how we keep up with who's releasing what songs, who's playing what shows. And so I ended up being like, I can't catch up on what everybody's up to if I'm not on Instagram.
Sure.
So now I just try to have boundaries with it. But it is a good place to showcase, here's what's going on business wise. But I don't post on Instagram the way I did in high school and college. That was just like, here's a piece of pizza I'm eating or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think it's good mentally to turn it off sometimes.
Well, I think it's really hard because I always compare it to it's like a venomous snake that I've let into my life. And so social media it's so important to what I do. Yeah. But it also so often can I'll read something that will just derail my whole day. Yeah. And so I try is probably the key word because I'm not successful all the time, but just try and have these boundaries where it's like, oh yeah, I'm just not going to open this today. Yeah. Or I'm only going to open if I have to post this thing. It's hard because they're designed for us. They would want us to keep it open as long as possible. Yeah. They're selling us. You're getting sucked. As soon as you open it, you're like, oh. Yeah. But then there's so many positives that come out of social media. No doubt. TikTok, how many careers have taken off because of TikTok. And I love when an artist I've worked with posts one of our songs and you instantly get feedback. It was never that quick of a turnaround before. And you know what it reminds me of is the glory days of YouTube when everyone was posting covers. That's how Justin Bieber was discovered. It's just the present day YouTube. Yeah. In short form, our attention spans have gone down. Yeah. But yeah, it's discovery. Yeah. And artists, we long to be discovered, and it helps with that. And I stumble upon so many artists on TikTok where I'm like, you are so good. Who are you? Dang. I will DM random people on TikTok and be like, that. Do you ever write songs? Do you want to? I'll Zoom with you. Oh, that's so cool. What kind of advice would you give to yourself if you were to run the whole thing back? What's something you would tell younger you? That's really sweet. Run it back. I would tell little Emily to stop trying to be like everyone else. Embrace what makes you unique. Be weird. Nobody else is going to do you as well as you do you. And while you're so busy trying to fit in, you're missing opportunities because you're not using what makes you unique. So it's a cliche to be be yourself. But I feel like the more I learn who I am and where I come from, the more comfortable I am with knowing how I would say things in a song or, I don't know, you can get more vulnerable with your co-writers and write something really real, you know? And I would tell her, don't stress it. Enjoy the ride. It's going to work out. And don't try to control everything. The big picture will take care of itself. It's put one foot in front of the other. Don't look up and see what's up there. But one day at a time, trust your gut because that intuition is everything. Yeah. And it's gonna work out. It's gonna be fun. Chase the song and live your life. I find the best songs I write are not from me sitting there trying to write a great song. Yeah. It's because I just saw a boat that day.
Yeah.
or whatever.
Travel. Take some trips and live some life.
Yeah, read a book.
Go visit your family.
How do you like source ideas for stuff besides living your life? Are you a reader?
Yeah.
Are you a movie watcher? Are you a note taker? Like, what's your...
All of the above. I love reading.
Yeah.
I love a good escape in a book. Movies. Great movies have great scripts. You have to, like, they're right there. You gotta, how many times do you sit in a room and they're like, I heard this line in a movie. I mean, I love to go on hikes, go on long drives. It's almost like cooking, baking bread, doing things that aren't writing, you know?
I love that. My wife always gets mad at me because we're watching a movie. She's like, why are you on your phone? I'm like, they just said something. Yeah. Just hold on.
Yeah.
But it is a lot of that. It's like sometimes making something else.
Yes.
Cooking pasta. Mm-hmm. Something else hits you. Yeah. Just time to let it kind of.
When you're in the motions of it.
Yeah.
Your subconscious can kind of run.
Yeah. There is some, it's like walking too.
Yeah.
Or just hiking, same thing. But yeah, just walk around a lot.
And get out in nature. You know, remind yourself that we're little specks on a little speck called Earth. Like, we take it all too seriously sometimes.
Yeah. Dang.
Get out in the grass.
That's right. Touch grass.
Get grounded. Johnny's mom, Nancy, talks about getting barefoot, going outside, standing in the grass. You got to get grounded. That's a thing.
I love that. I need to do that more.
We don't do that enough. We live in concrete jungle here.
I know. I got this lawn. Sometimes I think about it. I'm like, it looks soft.
I got this lawn.
I don't know what it feels like.
Yeah, I've never stood out in that lawn.
Was there anything that you're super pumped about coming up?
You know what? Just I'll circle back to what I said earlier about when I moved here, how I just thought I had to write guy songs in order to have a career. I will say, I feel like there are a lot of young female artists on the rise in Nashville, and I'm just really stoked for the ladies. Like,
it's awesome.
There are obviously some amazing guys too, and new guys who are killing it. But I just feel like there's gonna be a moment of like a lot of badass women coming up.
I feel like it's...
I mean, look at Lainey Wilson, Meg Maroney. There's so many girls who I'm like, God, y'all are so good.
They're killing it. I feel like a lot of them have learned from Taylor Swift, who's like the GOAT of promoting stuff. I'm constantly in awe of like how these new artists, and a lot of them are female artists, are like able to, I mean, their careers are exploding, and it is so awesome to see because it's like they're doing it, you know, themselves.
So authentic.
And yes, and authentic, and it's so, like Lainey, of course, she's like, she's one of one. She's not trying to be anybody else.
No.
And that has made her, you know, like probably like the fastest or one of the biggest artists in the format right now. And
it's so cool to move here and finally see like the new stars rise, you know? I feel like we're finally to a point where I'm like, wow, I remember seeing Lainey at Douglas Corner or wherever. And yeah, it's really fun to predict like who's going to be the next big thing. We're just planting our seeds everywhere and seeing what happens.
Yeah, trying to be a part of the next wave or whatever.
But I'm excited for the ladies.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thanks
I'm very
for having
honored
me,
to have
Troy.
you on. Yeah.
This was fun.
Thank you.
Now I need to ask you all these questions because I need to hear all of your stories too.
Next time. All right. That's it. That's the pod. See you later. Thanks everybody for listening. Keep rating, keep reviewing, keep subscribing. We love you. Talk to you soon.